Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Medicine Buddha. Today, tonight, this evening, this morning, wherever you are in the world, welcome. So good to see so many of you, and thank you so much um, for joining in. Thank you for those of you who are new to our practice. Thanks for joining. Um, I am uh, coming to you from the ancestral lands of actually multiple tribes. Actually, um, Muskogee, Cherokee, Seneca, Choctaw, um, many others. I say this all to say that I'm not in Georgia right now, but I'm in Middle Tennessee. So shout out to all of my Middle Tennesseans if you happen to be around. I'm near Nashville. Well, a couple hours from Nashville. But anyway, that's the closest city that I know of. I think I'm close to Knoxville actually, as well. So I'm spending some time here um, with family and just being out on the land, um, and which has been really nice and special. So thank you everyone for being here. We're gonna have. I won't keep us too terribly long today. Um, I'm gonna move us right along. Um, so, but awesome. Yeah. So, again, you can begin to post uh, prayer requests right in the chat box. And I think I got to all the questions last week. Um, but I think that if you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the question um, chat box. Ask a question, which you will see at the bottom of your screen. Okay. Right. So yeah, I'm so it's so actually really nice to see everyone just kind of saying hello in the chat box. I just really like to see where people are coming in from. Um, and I think I just really love seeing um, people also name ancestral lands here and native indigenous lands because it's really important that we remember um, you know, the land, because the land remembers um, the communities who have allied with it over many years, thousands of years. you know, um, so the land has a long memory, um, and it's really important that we part of I would say part of the decolonizing everything is remembering. And I think this is why the Satipatthana, the four foundations of mindfulness, are really important as well because it's about remembering who we are. And so much of our suffering, I think in Buddhism we would say all of our suffering really is about the ways in which we've forgotten who we are. Right, we've forgotten about our ultimate nature, our awakened nature um, as well. So to remember everything, right? To remember, and I think so much of, I think this is happening in many ways all over the world, but I just speak about the United States right now. I think so much of what's happening is this again a continued aggression to maintain forgetfulness, right? We want to get rid of anything that's helping us to remember who we are. Because if we remember who we are, we can't be so easily controlled, right? Um, but to remember who we are means that we have to do this incredible labor of moving into developing a relationship with the things we habitually run away from, trauma, the sadness, the grief, right? The history of violence as well, you know? So instead of just going back into those narratives, those histories, those experiences, and doing the healing work, right? We just want to like bypass it and keep, pushing to the side and saying, this doesn't matter anymore. The past, what people love to say is the past doesn't matter anymore, but we are living the past, actually. Until you actually deal with the past doesn't go away, right? It's like, it's trauma, it's energy. It's like energy just doesn't go away because I wanted to go away. Energy goes away when I actually start to metabolize that energy by experiencing, right? Releasing, letting go, choosing a different way to identify with the energy, you know, right? So this stuff doesn't disappear, right? I just can't go and click my Ruby heels together, right? And just wish for everything to disappear. I wish I could, right? I wish I could do that for everyone, but it just doesn't work out like that. This whole situation we find ourselves in, samsara, or what I call the carceral state, right? The spiritual carceral state, the psychological carceral state, right? Is an experience that has to be faced, right? Faced, experienced, acknowledged, named. And again, this is the opposite of what we're experiencing. We're not naming anything. We're trying to erase it, and this is going to create more suffering. And this is really interesting too, because who is it creating more suffering for, right? I think ultimately it's the people who are really involved in trying to forget and forcing other people to forget history, right? Those are the people who are suffering the most, right? You know, for those of us who are doing the work of stepping up and naming histories and violences and trauma, and then engaging in the practices that free us from those habitual relationships, those reactive relationships with these histories, with these experiences, we're actively working towards liberation. While those people who are avoiding and pushing away, they're deepening this experience. They're fueling, they're cycling through samsara, the carceral state, right? They're just making it worse. I'm really grateful to have encountered Dharma, Buddhism in this life, because it has helped me to really understand the complexities of liberation, of getting free, but the complexities of suffering as well. That suffering, I just can't push suffering away and pretend like I'm not suffering, right? That I actually have to go through and experience suffering, which is the hard part, right? This is like why, when, like my Swami says that, when she was exploring Buddhism, she was turned off because, Buddhism started with suffering, right? The Four Noble Truths. The first truth is that there's suffering, right? And she was like, why did we have to start with that, right? And of course, my relationship to that first introduction of suffering was actually quite liberatory, because I was finally encountering a system of practice that didn't deny the fact that I was not okay. The first teaching was like, you know what, you're not okay. Like, this is all not supposed to be happy. You're not supposed to be suffering like this, but there's a lot of suffering. And we're going to start there. I love that. That it just validated everything for me. It was like, of course, like, I'm suffering. And I was encountering a system of practice that wasn't trying to gaslight me, scapegoat me, because I was suffering. I didn't want to start with the happiness. I didn't want to start with a system that said, okay, let's be happy. I needed to I had to start with a system that began with the real work of suffering, you know, give me what I need to start making sense of this, right? And I think that like that's also about cultural locations, identity locations, because for those of us who are coming out of intersections of intense systematic oppression and marginalization, our relationship to suffering isn't something that we can bypass. Like we are experiencing this. Like I have never not experienced the suffering. I would say I've never not experienced the pressure of this kind of systematic erasure, that systematic oppressions create for those of us coming out of these intersections, you know, um, of marginalized identities, right? Like I was never not aware that I was Black, right? And then when I had to start dealing with queerness, there was like another layer of suffering, right? And then there was other identity locations that I had to start working with as well, that carried a lot of energy of suffering because of the ways in which systems within the carceral state created these realities that wouldn't allow me to be well and happy and safe, in very much the same way we're still working with, right? And I think for many of us who may not have had those early experiences, with suffering, I think where more and more people are getting kind of tuned into this as we struggle through, legislation, for instance, that is continuing to uh, restrict our right to resources that we need to be well. You know, you know. Um, you know. So, and then you get to this point um, where there's a release. Like there's this release, and it's well, I didn't know. It's hard to articulate it, but um, where you get to the point where you let your heart break, right? Where I've been very fortunate for this to happen. You stop running away from it, right? Um, and you just let your heart break wide open. And then that's when the nature of things just start coming into focus, right? Everything happens when the ultimate brokenheartedness occurs, right? I tell, we practice this every week, right? And I tell you the practice. We practice this every week. I give you the instructions for this over and over again. And I tell you, it's just this is a matter of trust. You know, when I when I let my heart break, I have to trust that I am being held, that I am being caught, that as I fall apart, the pieces of me are not just scattering to the wind into oblivion, that the pieces of me are tenderly, gently being held, by the earth, by the ancestors, by the deities, by the mother, you know, everything, right? By phenomenal world in general is actually conspiring in this kind of benefit and tending to our brokenheartedness, you know. Um, to let it go. And I know some of you're concerned, right, that you won't survive the brokenheartedness. And this is the point where you also start believing that, like, this brokenheartedness is only an expression of the nature of my own mind. My brokenheartedness is nothing more, right, than an expression of emptiness, and space, and energy. How can I worry about surviving something when I don't even exist to begin with? Like that I'm just space. I'm space, I'm conscious energy, you know, I'm impermanent, right? But the problem is I keep saying I am, I am, and I'm none of this. Like there's no way for us to say I am space. Space rejects, it transcends, it cannot be held in a container that we can identify as being something or another, because that's not the nature of space. Space is limitless, right? And we're terrified of that because we don't know what space, right? Space is, but space really being complete freedom, right? Complete liberation. We don't know what that is, you know. The world, all the stuff in the world, everything that we're struggling with, we're dealing with, from inflation, right, which is like unbelievable. The cost of food, cost of gas, living, on top of the violence, right, that we're moving through, on top of, just trying to take care of people, trying to take care of our communities. It's us, and like it's me and my community. It's me and the people that I'm caring about. It's me and the people that I love. It's us. So it's not just me, it's everyone, right? And you deal with all of this, you move through all of this, and you ask yourself, how can I possibly do this? You know? Right? I think the first stage here is when, are you praying? Like, are you calling for your help? Because we're not alone in the struggle. The unseen world has organized to support us. You know, to organize that we are connected to very powerful beings, right? But we have to learn how to ask for help. This is why we do medicine Buddha, right? This is why we do all the Buddhas, right? Because we have to start asking for help. We have to start opening, you know. And quite frankly, some of y'all, you're not going to get free because you're so tied into identifying with the trauma. This is who I am. This is what I am, right? And you're never going to get free like that. Like everything is an experience. Like, because you don't identify with it, of course, it doesn't mean that it just goes away, because it doesn't just go away. But what happens is the space opens up around it. So you can say, oh, this is in my experience. Trauma is here, right? But that's not who I am. That's not what I am. That's not what I'm emanating from. We are not emanating. We're not being expressed from the suffering. We're being expressed from the space. And because we refuse to change the tracks of our thinking, to start actually identifying with the space over the trauma, we get stuck in samsara. We get stuck in the carceral state because we refuse. You know? But this doesn't just happen overnight. I mean, this is this is methodical work that we engage in every single day, every second. That we begin to slowly begin to to lean towards the space instead of into the trauma over and over and over again. You know? And this is what healing is, right? And no one's gonna get you free except for you, right? We can talk about collective work all we want to, and that's important. We have to talk about collective work. This is important. But at the end of the day, no one's going to pull you through that gateway of liberation, right? We just can't jump on someone's bandwagon, right? And just just kind of cart our way into freedom. Freedom is something that we have to consent to individually. And sometimes we have to choose freedom even though our communities are not choosing freedom, right? I have often had to make choices, that are not in line with the communities that I'm a part of. Because some of the communities that I've been a part of have actually been much more interested in identifying and fixating to the trauma instead of actually choosing to lean into the space, right? Because the trauma is who we've convinced ourselves we are, who we are. And like, I've gotten to a place where I'm just like, I just can't suffer anymore. I'm tired of suffering. Like, the trauma isn't actually helping me to do anything, right? Especially if I'm self-identifying with it, right? Trauma isn't trying to get us free. This is what I'm saying. Right? And again, we've had this talk before, over and over again. But again, I'll just point it out. Some of you aren't interested in being free, and you just actually need to just point that out for yourself, right? And this is not like a bad thing. Like, you have to start where you're at, and you have to start with maybe saying, you know what, I actually don't know what this freedom thing is, so I'm not choosing it yet, and that's fine, right? There is an intense responsibility that comes with choosing freedom. There. I think you'll get more of what I'm trying to communicate in my next book when it comes out next year. You know, there is a weight, an obligation to freedom that will have you making choices, right? That will that will have you looking all kinds of ways to people. I listen, been there and done it. Been there and done it. I continue to do it. You know, you have to look at you actually have to get to these really great things. Like, think about the times where you, maybe this happened today, where you have just been really joyful, full of joy, full of gratitude, full of happiness. You're just like, oh my God, this is great. I love being alive. Everything is wonderful. Everything's rainbows, and unicorns and cupcakes and peppermint candies and, strawberry milkshakes or whatever, and puppy dogs and kittens, right? And just like endless loops of golden girls, like, you just like all of that. It's just like, oh my God, I love this. Think about that experience, right? And think about it long enough, and then get to a point you say, and I actually have to be liberated from this. I actually have to be liberated from my attachment, my fixation, my reactivity to this experience of happiness. Freedom means I am liberated from all of it, everything, all of my reactivity, everything, right? Because we're trying to transcend even our limited experience of happiness and joy. We're trying to get to bliss. And bliss, bliss is an experience that is very hard to hold if you're embodied. And we're all embodied, right? If, regardless of how disembodied we feel we are, we have a body. There's a body here. There's a physical body. The physical body can't actually hold the conscious experience of bliss, right? Because it will literally fry you. It will vaporize you, right? Um, but that's where we're going, because bliss will vaporize any speck of illusion that we take as being real. Like, it's like bliss is like coming into a dark room and just turning on every light in the world in this one room. That's probably not even extreme enough. But every, like, even the sun, it's like the bliss is like Just like think about the room that you're in now and think about if it was completely dark and then the actual sun, this big star sun, were just to like appear in this room. That's what bliss is, right? You can't even wrap your mind around that, you know? Like, what does it even mean to sit by the sun? The body can't possibly survive that. But the mind, actually, you know, right? The mind is everything. Everything is an expression of mind. So there's nothing that can actually obliterate mind. Right? And this is what we're trying to get to. Like we're trying to remember that. We're trying to like we're trying our awareness is trying to gaze back at awareness. Like we talked about this last week. I think I remember this, right? It's like putting two mirrors face to face, and the way that creates an image in one mirror of like this endless tunnel refraction, right? Well, I used to love to do that when I was little. It was just, I would fantasize that this would open up this portal that would take me into all these multiple dimensions. That's what we're trying to do. Awareness is trying to gaze upon awareness, right? Instead of gazing outwardly and taking everything as real, we're trying to, our awareness, our consciousness, right? And I use consciousness and awareness interchangeably here, right? Awareness is trying to gaze upon awareness. And it's just that whatever energy, that refraction, whatever it is, when awareness gazes upon awareness, it blows everything out. Because awareness begins to see, these are all just like really not appropriate words, but it's the best I can do. So when awareness gazes upon itself, then it realizes what it is, and it realizes what it isn't, right? But awareness, so here's the other piece of this: awareness is always gazing upon itself. We just don't get that. The phenomenal world is just an expression of our awareness. Once we start getting that, then this whole illusion begins to evaporate. Now, when I say evaporate, it doesn't mean that everything just fades to black and you're free. It means that like you begin to actually intuitively experience the illusion of everything, right? And you begin to see everything for what it was, for what it is, right? Right? And it's no longer about you, and it's no longer about me. It's about what is. I mean, there's such a like a sweetness here, right? There's such a incredible. I mean, I just like that's the only word that I know, right? Just sweetness is incredible sweetness. And once that happens, right, you're no longer bound in this world, in this reality, in this dimension, right? And you actually begin to understand. Um, well, it's not even understand. Like that's not even the right word either. You begin to to simply experience the dynamic multitudinal, if that's a word, multitudinal uh, expression of everything. And this is Pride Month as well. And of course, I wasn't planning on saying any of this. So um, I think about queerness and, queerness. I mean, it can be linked to everything. Um, but how this relates, like queerness for me, it's like it's not about being safe, right? It's about being happy, which is something I've been like thinking about. It's not about my safety. It's about happiness. How do I choose happiness, even in the face of the lack of safety or harm? And this is related to this conversation too, because it's not about being safe. Well, none of this is safe. It's not safe, particularly if you're valuing and cherishing like this sense of self that has actually formed itself through the identification of suffering, or through the self-identification of suffering, right? By saying I am this, I am that, to choose liberation, which is again choosing space. This isn't going to feel safe, right? This is going to feel very counterintuitive, right? And this is why a great many beings will take a whole lot of time before they actually begin to come onto this path to liberation. Again, when you begin to choose liberation, like what do you're beginning to take on the weight of disrupting the ways in which you let yourself be comfortable in illusion. Well, and since it is Pride Month, right, I think about all the people who chose happiness and chose community and chose to fight, which made it possible for us to be all of us, not just those of us who are queer and trans, and but all of us. For me, queerness is the practice of everyone getting space to be themselves, right? And there's an emotional labor, right, that um, queer and trans and non-binary people take on for people, because again, to choose liberation in terms of queerness, means that we take on the ways in which the carceral state samsara retaliates against us, right? It's not in, of course, the carceral state sounds very detached from the reality of people retaliating against us for choosing to be ourselves. And that's part of the weight of this, right? Because as we're organizing, managing, moving through the ways in which the world is retaliating against us, we have to also not just choose the space, but we're also choosing the compassion, right? And for those of you who are saying, oh, compassion is enough, you haven't really done compassion yet if you're saying that, right? Your practice of compassion actually hasn't is not expansive enough, isn't deep enough. If you're saying that, because if you when you really start doing practicing embodying compassion, you would know this shit is for real. This shit does not fuck with anyone. Compassion, when you call compassion, compassion doesn't show up and say, let's hang out, let's be nice to everyone. Compassion means that you start doing shit, right? That gets to the point. If you want to get free, let's get to work, right? Some of you confuse compassion with being nice. It's two different things. You know. But this is like shit's real now. Shit's getting realer, right? And you're gonna have to choose something. You have to choose a side. It's not this kind of, oh, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. No, it's like, this is what I'm doing. Like, I'm about getting free. This is what I am doing. This is what I'm up to. And when you choose that freedom, you're gonna lose things. You're gonna lose things. You will have to give things up. Things will be taken away from you. Right? This is the weight of this. I listened to some of the young folks talk about revolution. I was like, you know, here's the thing with revolution. If you want to start a revolution, you better be willing, or you better be open to the fact that, like, you may be the one who's going to the guillotine, right? A revolution isn't a solution to anything, right? That's the breaking away. Like, that's the falling apart, breaking away, right? Like, the real work starts with actually the dreaming. But a revolution doesn't do anything about the trauma that's created the culture and the history that you're like revolting against. Like, that revolution isn't healing. Revolution is just an explosion. It's a release, But the source of that trauma, the source of the things that had to be released is still there until you begin to center the work of healing. And, you know, There's just so much romanticizing. Actually, the way forward is healing. A revolution is easy. You just have to get pissed off enough, right? And get a whole bunch of other people pissed off, right? I think we saw this in America on January 6th, 2 years ago. I think we, I think we saw what is possible and what is continuing to be planned by many people, right? That's not a solution to anything. The healing is the solution. So what are you doing about the healing? That brings us to medicine Buddha, right? Right? You can fight, you can organize, and you can pray at the same time. And that's what we need to start doing. I mean, there's nothing else there's no other choice, is there? Like, we either choose healing, or what else? If we're not choosing healing, we're choosing the suffering. We're choosing cycling over and over and over and over again into the carceral state. And this is also what I want to say. I want to give a shout out to all my queer elders in this space. Now, I'm not gonna like out people, so I know some of you are here. You know, um, I just want to shout out to my queer elders, like, who made it possible for me to be here. Many of us, of course, many of us to be here. I'm just talking about me right now. Right? um, just everything that you did, um, to call us, to call your descendants into the world, because this is what we're doing. Like when we're committing to liberation work, right? We are calling our descendants into a world that's a little bit better than what we found it. And because of our elders, right, and their labor, they created a world for us that was a little better. I would say maybe a lot better than what they came into. I just want to, I get involved in all of this organizing around Pride, and I'm about to launch this big Pride campaign this week. Um, so follow that on social media and everything, and so I've just been working on this for a while, and with different other groups, and it's just all I just think about all of this anyway during this time, regardless of how much work I'm doing with Pride. And we just don't remember. A lot of young folks forget, that someone actually had to work for us to have what we have, to experience what we experience. And this should remind us that we have to work now, as all this shit is happening, all the legislation, the anti-trans legislation, and like, the abolishing, abortion and everything. We actually have to realize that we have to engage in our own organizing in the same way our elders and earlier generations engaged in work. You know, look at Jane. Look at you putting "Oh Happy." I was just thinking about "Oh Happy Day." I wasn't going to get into it, but that's right. Watch, fight, and pray. Watch, fight, and pray. Be vigilant. Watch, awareness. Be aware. Right. Fight, work. Do work. Do the labor. Right, and pray. Praying, connecting to the unseen world, connecting to space. Right. And live every day rejoicing in that. Right. And that is true. Like I rejoice, because I'm able to do the labor of watching and fighting and praying every day. What are you doing? What are we doing? What are you doing? You know? And, I don't want to make this sound easy. If I'm making this sound easy, then that's wrong. This isn't easy. um, but you have to give up things. Like you have to know what it feels like to lose things, right? Because when you start choosing freedom, you will be blamed, because you become a mirror for all the ways you become a mirror for people and the ways in which they're choosing not to get free. And because people don't want to deal with the pain, they're going to try to annihilate you to try to make the pain go away. Like you have to start thinking about, I know some of you disagree with this, but you have to start thinking about the suffering level of all of this. You know, is this really about me? Is this violence that I'm experiencing really about me? You know, do you hate me or do you hate yourself? Right? Are you trying to erase me because I'm inherently wrong, or do you just think this is the only way that you can stop hurting? Or the only way you'll stop being reminded that what you've invested in is actually like a house built on sinking sand, or a house built on sand, as the parable points out. That your house is actually sliding into the ocean. For some of us, that's actually literal. But your house is sinking into the ocean, and instead of like actually trying to figure out a new way of living, you're just going to try to annihilate everyone who's reminding you that your house is sinking, sliding into the ocean. That's when I talk about suffering, other people suffering. It's like you're trying to annihilate me, but I can strategize against that annihilation. Because I personally understand that I am actually more than this body, right? So you can kill me, but you're not going to kill me, right? I get that. I understand that. Now you can take what you want, but this body is, a brilliant, beautiful expression of who I am, but it's also the least expression of who I am compared to my expression of awakened mind. Everything is an illusion except for mind, and the space, and the energy, and the intelligence, and the consciousness. No one can kill that. There's no such thing as death in that experience of consciousness. This is a lot of the labor that we're engaging in. We're trying to get to experience this level of mind, this expression of consciousness, right? Because we need it. We have to get there. We have to get a glimpse of that, or we'll continue to believe that everything, all this other stuff is real. And when all this other stuff is impacted or whatever, then we think that's who we are. And so we'll respond, or we'll react to that, right? I mean, if you just listen, when I say listen, I'm not talking about like auditory or sense faculties. I'm like, listen, like if you can just intuitively feel the ways the phenomenal world is singing. It's not the word singing, it's the way the phenomenal world is just opening into space. But it takes so much faith to get there. You know, like, what is that? Like we've been talking about this the past couple of weeks. Like this is the deity, like particularly the wisdom deity being an expression of emptiness itself, which is the same thing as saying being an expression of our minds. Like you can, the ways in which, and I know I've said this before, but the ways in which the phenomenal world is just opening, expanding, right? Which feels so different than what we're experiencing, which is contraction and shutting down and closing off and numbness. To expand into space, to feel the phenomenal world, inviting the expansion of consciousness, because the consciousness is already expanded. You know, our awareness, this limited awareness that's hovering around the sense of self, is trying to expand outward to actually merge again with this grander expression of consciousness. That's when awareness begins to gaze upon awareness. And then that gazing is the freedom. This is what I call the sweetness, right? Can you even try, right? This is what is called practice, right? Can you just like turn that awareness out? Just as an experiment. Like this isn't our main practice tonight, but just to begin with, just like turning awareness out, letting awareness open to hold everything. Noticing how you're always reacting, noticing how you're always thinking, and just noticing. And noticing once you give space, offer space through awareness, how everything just starts rising into this field of awareness. Like the pain, the suffering, the sadness, the despair. And you don't have to do anything with it. It's not asking you to fix it. It's asking you to take care of it. And we take care of it by just letting it be, not reacting, just letting it be. Waves rising from the surface of the ocean. A wave will rise and a wave will also come back into the ocean. My sadness is just an expression of emptiness, space, and energy. And it will return back to energy, space, and emptiness. And we'll always experience this tension, this terror, anxiety that many of you experience when we do things like this, because like you're still like, I don't know what the word, I want to say a V word, vehemently clinging to the sense of self, which is also tied to the experience of body. Again, no one can save you. Like, no one's going to save you. No one's going to save me. We can help save each other. We can support each other. But ultimately, it's this labor that we have to do for ourselves. I have to know my own mind. I can't rely on other people to know my mind. I have to do that. Right? So we're gonna just like ease into our practice today. Right? And then from wherever you're at, again, allowing the body to your body to come into a position that feels appropriate for you. And this is the first level of care that we begin to offer, letting the body be. And shifting our attention to the seat, noticing the weight of our bodies and the seat rising to hold us, to anchor us. Noticing that sensation. What is that sensation, that anchor of the seat and the body meeting? And when you get to that point, that anchor, that experience, I wonder if you can experience this sensation as the seat loving you, wanting you to be safe, happy, and have resources. When you're ready, shifting your attention even further, touching into the earth, acknowledging the earth, the land. And there's another coming together, another kind of contact, between our attention and the consciousness of the earth. So when we touch the earth, we can physically touch the earth, but we can also, as we've just done, we can just become aware of the earth. And that means that we're touching the earth through our minds. And the earth, being conscious as well, touches us back. And what is that experience? What does that feel like for you? Can you also, in this moment, notice how the earth is taking care of you? Right. And so if you are able to work with the breath today, and it's okay if you're not. So I'll give you, for those who aren't working with the breath, I'll give some more instructions in a moment. But if you're working with the breath, you can join me, in just breathing up and down the back, which is the same as breathing up and down the central channel that runs from the tailbone to the top of our heads, the crown chakra. So as we inhale, you imagine breathing up the spine, up the central column. As we exhale, allowing that breath to fall back down to the tailbone. Just breathing up and down. So if you're not working with the breath, stay with the earth, stay with the seat as an anchor for now. Just a few more breaths here. So we're gonna just adjust the breath. So we're gonna continue breathing up the spine, but now we're gonna just breathe up the spine and stop at the heart center. So coming right up to the heart center. And then once you get to the heart center, exhaling, allowing the breath to drop back down to the tailbone. I'm beginning to open up the heart center a little bit as we go a little deeper into our practice. And traditionally, the heart center and the heart chakra represent the intuitive feeling energy center of both our energetic bodies as well as our physical bodies. So we carry a lot in the heart center. There's a lot of pain in our heart center. And sometimes when the pain is really built up, we can feel as if the heart center is kind of hardened, crusted over, closed down. And we do these kinds of heart opening practices in order to start to move, break up this energy and shift it around, which will have the impact of deeper empathy, deeper compassion, deeper love, a deeper sense of fluidity and movement. So as you inhale up into the heart center, imagine that the inhale is dissolving what we feel is heavy or overwhelming in the heart center. And then as we exhale, imagining that this energy is released down through the tailbone, down into the earth, where the earth holds and neutralizes this energy for us. So letting go. And for those of you who aren't working with the breath, I invite you to imagine, first bringing your attention to the heart center. And actually imagining that the heaviness, the crustiness, however you're visualizing this or experiencing the heart center, that it just begins to slowly release and open, releasing that energy out of the body, down into the earth. And you can even imagine, there's another visualization, that the heart is like ice and it's just beginning to melt through your imagination. That melting is the melting away of sadness and anger and fear, hate even. So using that visualization and or the breath is fine. Just letting it go. And we're going to move through all three of our mantras, but we're going to begin with our first mantra, Om Minla Sangye Kino Soha, which is a prayer, a mantra to Medicine Buddha, to begin to awaken really in the space around us. And we'll just chant that a few times. Of course, you can sit and listen. But this is our invitation to the awakened consciousness of Medicine Buddha. And we're going to start with just a long Om to begin with, just like we do in Durga. Okay. Taking a breath. In the beginning. I'm sorry. I'm starting over. I'm sorry. I'm being taken somewhere else right now. Let me start one more time. Om la sange hi no so Om la sange hi no so Om la sange hi no so Well, we imagine that the consciousness of Medicine Buddha is just awakening in the space around us. Now, wonder what your experience of this awakened consciousness is. You don't have to experience anything, but just getting curious. What feels different? And again, continuing to release, you can relax the breath if you want, or continue with the breath. You can continue with the releasing visualizations from the heart center as well. But we can begin to imagine that this awakened consciousness of Medicine Buddha becomes this energy around us that slowly begins to hold us, begins to take care of us. And so from this space, we're not going to go any further. I want us to kind of stay in the space. And we'll transition to our main mantra. Te Tao Baconze, Maha Baconze, Raja Sumongate, Soha. And this is our main mantra to Medicine Buddha. I don't have my drum tonight, so we're just going to chant this. And as we begin to chant, we're going to chant just for a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll offer the prayers for tonight, for the session. Then come back and chant a little more, then we'll transition into our Durga mantra to close out the session. Okay? So turning our minds back to our main mantra, Teya Taon Bekenze, Maha Bekenze, Rasa Sumangate Soha. You begin to chant, and just again, chanting, connecting to the consciousness of Medicine Buddha around you, continuing to release the energy from the heart center down into the earth. And finding anywhere in this that you find generative and stabilizing. Please do wherever feels good for you and appropriate. Okay, so we'll begin. And we're going to start with another as well. Then we'll go into the mantra. And inhaling. Teya Taon Bekenze, Ma Bekenze, Rasa Sumangate Soha. 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 begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumo rate zoa. 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 I'm going to turn our attention now to the offering of our prayers today. And as always, I call the attention of all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dharma protectors, all angels, spirits of light, all the elements, including the earth, all of our benevolent ancestors, all deities, and other beings who are on the side of light. We offer these prayers to you, to the world, and we ask you to work with us, ally with us, to bring about the fruition of our prayers, and only the fruition of prayers that benefit, that heal, that liberate, not prayers that harm. This is not the practice we're doing tonight, it's harming. All right? So we offer prayers for Khalid Hassama, who died last week at a very young age, for his wife Alexa, and for her mother, Patricia Bradshaw, and all the Khalid's family in the Middle East. Offering prayers for Peter, inner peace and strength to go through everything he got planned for the rest of this year, and prayers for the Ukraine. Offering prayers for Lee as she recovers from spinal surgery. Offering prayers for JD's father, Stephen, who recently passed from brain cancer. May he have a safe transition, and may his family find ease in this time of mourning. Offering prayers for Nina and Rishi, for my family, ancestors, and guides. Prayers for myself, prayers for Senor Manuel, Alberto, Nelson, Fernando, Jorge, and for the Cabrals. Prayers for Bunima, all beings, all who suffer. Prayers of love and gratitude for Lama Rod. Prayers for Tibet and their people. Prayer for all who practice, past, present, and future. Prayers for myself, and that I practice well and diligently to overcome fear, and for my protection and well-being. Prayers, please, for my father as he is dying, and for my sister who is managing his care. Prayers for me to trust the space opening in my life and not to contract in the fear of the unknown. Prayers for my Aunt Angela, who has been in and out of the hospital. Offering prayers for my husband, who just tested positive for COVID. We're offering prayer requests for Yvette Latera, who died last October at age 32 after mental illness. Prayers for me to feel and know and understand your teaching that I am being held as I try to deal. Prayer requests for my son living with mental illness. Prayers for all beings. Prayers for Maggie, who was injured pretty badly in a bike crash and needs surgery for her hand. For my friend Monique's father, who is in the hospital. For all those affected by current wildfires. For myself as I prepare to return to work after a mental health leave. Offering prayer requests for myself, my mother, my father, and my partner, as we all do our best to be well and to do right by each other amidst really challenging circumstances. May we remember. And offering prayers for Zoe, who I work with in intending stewarding the land. Prayers for the healing of the earth and the waters that have been abused by the agribusiness. Prayers for everyone, everywhere, who has or is still suffering from gun violence or trying to recover from the effects of it. Prayers for the Ukraine. We're offering prayers for children, trans and otherwise, who suffer by being separated from loving families. Prayers to all those living in fear of war, police violence, and laws and courts that take away their rights and freedoms and legislate their bodies and still personal sovereignty over their bodies and identities. We're offering prayer requests for myself, Rain Voss, as I died in a car accident earlier today. Prayers for all those on the planet who have encountered accidents and unplanned financial strain and stress in recent weeks. Offering prayers for myself and all who are recovering or are living with COVID and its symptoms. Prayers for all those trapped in institutions, prisons, hospitals, psych units, who are being abused and murdered. Prayers for the healing of Joel's eyes. Prayers for the healing of my knee, 6 weeks out of surgery, which is apparently needs loving, healing energy. Prayers for my brother and Kaluni, living near the sheep fire in Wrightwood. Offering prayers for Heidi. May she be held and supported on her trip across the country to scatter her father's ashes. Prayers for Alyssa and their young children as they navigate grief and learning new things about living and dying. I want to actually offer prayers as well for the land that we're all living and practicing on, for the land that I'm visiting right now. Prayers for its healing, prayers that it continues in some way to disrupt so much of the violence that's happening on it and to it. We continue to offer prayers for all beings who are trapped and suffering and being impacted by wars, by COVID and other illnesses, by systems of violence and genocide and oppression, by all of us who are impacted by the violence of hate and apathy and disregard. I continue to pray that we are all liberated as soon as possible. And I ask all of those beings, these beings we've invited here, to witness and to hold us, to act on our behalf, to bring about what we so deeply, earnestly need. And I also make a special prayer that you hold all of us, that you restore our faith in your love, that you restore our faith in liberation, and you restore our faith in being loved and expressing that love to others unconditionally. May we all be healed. May we all get free as quickly as possible. May this whole system of the carceral state be completely abolished for all beings. And we release the energy of this prayer out into the world, into the universe. And we let go, actually, of our hopes and desires, all of our agendas, just to offer the prayer and to let go and just say whatever happens will happen. That we trust all the energy, all the beings that we've called into this space. And as we return back to our mantra, just coming back into how we are being held by the consciousness, the awakened consciousness of Medicine Buddha, and the awakened consciousness of all beings around us who are always gathered around us, regardless of if we know that or not. Continuing to release whatever we're holding on to for ourselves and on behalf of all others who are struggling to be well. And we continue. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumo gati suwa. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumo gati suwa. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumunga de zua. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumunga de zua. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumunga de zua. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumunga de zua. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumunga de zua. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumunga de zua. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumunga de zua. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumunga de zua. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumunga de zua. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumunga de zua. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumunga de zua. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumunga de zua. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumunga de zua. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumunga de zua. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumunga de zua. Teya taung begenze, begenze ma begenze, raza sumunga de zua. Dehada Om Veganze Veganze Ma Veganze Rasa Sunganze Dehada Om Veganze Veganze Ma Veganze Rasa Sunganze Dehada Om Veganze Veganze Ma Veganze Rasa Sunganze Beata om behenze behenze ma behenze Radha sumonga zua Beata om behenze behenze ma behenze Radha sumonga zua Beata om behenze Beganze, ma beganze, raza sumugande zo. Deata hum beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumugande zo. And we'll transition now, staying in this space into our Durga mantra. And as we chant, really connecting to the protective energy of Durga Ma, the great expression of the mother, the fierce expression of the mother. Sending this protecting energy out to all those who need protection for ourselves and for others. Om Dum Durgaye Namaha. Om Dum Durgaye Namaha. O Mother, please protect all of us. Beginning with Om, inhaling. Om Dum Duraye Namaha. 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 Om Dum Duraye Om Dum Duraye Namaha. 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 And releasing once again all of this protective energy out into the world. And may all beings be protected and safe and have access to the resources that they need to be well. And may all of you be safe and happy and well and have access to the resources you need to be well. And may I be happy and safe and have access to the resources I need to be well. Returning our attention to the seat. Again, noticing how the seat rises to hold you. Touching the earth again. And then slowly beginning to reawaken the body. If your eyes have been closed, opening your eyes just slowly. Doing some simple stretching, some slow movements. And we're going to close our session with reciting Shantideva's prayer 3 times. And this is happening in the chat box. And we begin. May I be a protector for those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed, just like space. And the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space. And finally, may I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. Thank you so much for your practice today. Um, we will be having a 1 day medicine Buddha practice next month, and that should be on our website, on Bhumi Sparsha's website. Now, I think the date is Saturday, July something. So this is why you check the website and not rely on me to give you accurate information, especially after practice. I am all over the place right now. But yeah, so that's up, and I hope you're able to join us for that day. This is going to be a really great introduction day for those of you who are coming in now or in the past couple of weeks. We're just going to do a nice introduction to like the history of Medicine Buddha and the history of practice of Medicine Buddha and Tantra as well, using Changpa Rinpoche's book Medicine Buddha as well. And you don't need the book. I'll just be sharing passages from the book as well. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your practice. And I'm sure I'll see you again in some teaching space this week. Also, for those of you who identify as BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, we will be having a workshop teaching next week on grief and grieving. We're going to open that up to another series, a longer series of teachings for BIPOC folks right now. So you can find that on my website as well, or social media as well. So lots of stuff. Just stay connected. Lots of stuff to get involved with. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and please be well. And I'll see you, if not sooner than next Monday. Okay. Thank you.